afternoon. I'm Taylor Combluzia, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. We would like to extend our thanks to Oberon Capital for sponsoring this session. Our next presenter is Doug Eaton, who's the President, CEO, and Director of Strategic Metals Ltd. Strategic Metals is a successful project generator with a large portfolio of interests in over 120 properties and share interests in other exploration companies through project farmouts, investments, and royalty sales. Doug, you'll have about 15 minutes for the presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be presenting today. Time's tight, so we'll get right straight into the presentation. Okay, why would a person want to invest in strategic metals? Well, there's a number of good reasons. First, we do have a wealth of mineral projects. There's more than 100 in Yukon, northern BC, and western Northwest Territories. And we cover just about every metal that's worth mining and every type of deposit that's worth exploiting. So we're not dependent on the success or failure of one project. In addition to our direct mineral interests, we also hold 11 net smelter returns in other projects. And that we hope to build in the next few years as we option and sell some of our properties. We have a number of joint ventures currently negotiated with other companies that leverages our investments through their expenditures. One particularly noteworthy one is Cavu Mining, who very successfully drilled in our Hopper property last summer and expects a big program again later this year. We'll talk more about that later. As Taylor mentioned, we have a very impressive portfolio of shareholdings in other companies. Total value, that's about $32 million right now. It gives us exposure to advanced projects, again, without the risk of funding them ourselves. And it also broadens our geographic distribution. We have projects in Nevada, Newfoundland, all over the place that we have shareholdings in. We're strongly funded. We've got about $7 million now in cash, and we have no debt. So we don't see ourselves being diluted in the near term by any kind of financings. And finally, as Taylor again said, we've had some pretty significant success. We've been involved in a lot of major discoveries in Yukon and elsewhere, and we have access to one of the largest private databases in Western Canada, which gives us a huge advantage over our competitors. Won't dwell on this too much. It's on the website. A very strong management team that's been very stable for a number of years. We work together very well and cooperatively. Currently, we have just under 108 million shares outstanding, and with on a fully diluted basis, that goes up to just over 127 million. Market cap is about $40 million as of today's prices. That fluctuates, obviously. As I mentioned before, we have about $32 million worth of shares in other companies. Many of them are publicly traded. A couple of important ones, though, are still private. When we see liquidity, we're able to sell shares in those companies. Every single one is there as an investment, where we don't do it to control the other company's management. In the past 10, 15 years, we've distributed about $20 million to our shareholders, which really sets us apart from other most junior companies. Most aren't able to deliver cash or shares to the shareholders, and we have no debt. Management has about 9%. Cordilleran Group out of Dallas has about 12%. Sprott 9%. And the rougher number we found out today in a meeting with Ruffer is over 10%. Okay, why did we pick Yukon and northern BC in particular as a place to explore? Well, a number of important mineral belts run through there. One of them is the Northern Cordilleran Gold Province. It's a major gold district that has about 300 million ounces currently in resources and various deposits. Perhaps most importantly, it's attracted a lot of interest from majors in the last few years. There's been takeovers at Red Chris and Pretium. The area's seen major investments from Rio Tinto and others. So it's a belt that's getting a lot of interest. It's been productive, and we think there's lots of exploration potential still. Also, one of the major porphyry belts runs through the same area. The Intermontane Belt, and as you go north into Yukon, Alaska, the Yukon, Canada, host many important porphyry deposits, including some very large mines that have been mined and are still being mined in BC. Casino is the largest deposit in the Yukon territory, and our group was involved in the discovery of it back in the late 1960s, and were important in the reactivation of the project back in the 1990s. So very familiar with the porphyry signature, and we've used the last several years to acquire what we think are a stellar portfolio of porphyry projects. One of those projects is the Mint property. It's a very young porphyry system of less than 40 million years. The intrusion intrudes right up into volcanics that are a similar age. They're basaltic, very good reactive rocks. We drilled a hole in 2012 that averaged over 0.2 grams gold top to bottom for 330 meters. This past summer, we did some surface work about 800 meters north of that drill hole and made a very interesting discovery. Found a large area of mineralization that is definitely porphyry grade for copper and gold and silver and moly. And it looks to be sitting right over top of the gold-rich part of the system. The holes that we drilled had wonderful brecciation and strong phyllic alteration, the type of thing that you see out on the outer edge of a very rich porphyry. Another one of the targets, porphyry targets, is the Alada, which is about 40 kilometers southeast of Casino. And it's a project that I waited 20 years to acquire. It's very strong soil geochemistry, which we've been able to expand in the last few years, but more sampling. The geochemical anomaly sits right over top of a magnetic low, which appears to be a zone of sulfidation where the magnetite that's normally in the host rocks is destroyed, and would suggest to get a lot of hydrothermal alteration and mineralization. So it's never been drilled, never been trenched, and we're really looking forward to continue to advance that project. Changing subjects a bit, we also have a very impressive portfolio of critical metals. We've amassed that portfolio over more than 40 years of work. We have tin, tungsten, vanadium, nickel, cobalt, all in our portfolio. And we think we're about to do a deal that will shine a light on the value that's in those projects. So stay tuned. I think there'll be announcements relating to that in the next month or so. Gold projects, we have a number of good projects. One of them is the Mount Hinton project, which sits a little southeast of the Keno Hill district and a little further southeast of the Eagle deposit, which Victoria Gold has just brought into production, and again a little southeast of the Banyan Gold area, where they're having some very good results. Our mineralization is higher grade than Eagle or Banyan, more a vein type situation like they have at Keno Hill. Very good gold grades, often accompanied by silver. Responded well to drilling. Strong placer deposits directly downstream of the veining. So we think we're onto something really important here and expect to see a lot more work in the next few years. The Hopper property is one that we've got farmed out to Kavu. There's porphyry potential there and very good skarn mineralization. The comparison up in the right-hand corner is the geochemical signature at Hopper to the geochemical signature at Casino at the same scale and same intensity. And you can see the anomaly compares very well to the one at the very large Casino deposit. Kavu last year drilled about 6 holes, one in the porphyry, which confirmed the porphyry target, and the rest in the area of the skarn mineralization. And as you can see, they got a very impressive near-surface intercept, 22 meters of 1.4% copper and over 0.5 gram gold. We have a number of previous intercepts on that property that are similar grades for copper and gold. And in fact, some of the deeper intercepts which weren't tested by the Cavu holes, had over an ounce per ton gold in them. So there's a lot of potential here that I think Cavu will work aggressively on this year. They're planning a 4,000 meter program for the initial program, but hope to be able to extend that. If they complete their earn-in, we'll still have 30% interest in the property. We'll receive $750,000 of cash payments and some Cavu shares. So we really hope that they're successful in their work this year. Okay, so let's work our way around this chart. It explains some of our large shareholdings. Rockhaven Resources, we have a little over 30% of that company. They're working on a highly prospective and relatively advanced gold silver project near Carmax, road accessible. They're going to be doing another large drill program this coming summer, and they're still really reporting results from last year's drill program. And they expect to go into pre-feasibility following the 2022 drill program. Terra CO2, this could be a massive investment for us. We have currently about 20% of the company. It's working on an alternative to Portland cement. The cement industry, for people who don't realize it, is much bigger than the worldwide mineral industry. Cement is the production of cement is one of the largest CO2 producers, and the technology that Terra is working on can really reduce the amount of CO2 that's generated. The company is moving very rapidly toward production. They expect to have a plant operating this year. Very well financed with a very strong management team. So again, we're extremely pleased with the progress they're making. GGL, we have about 38%. They're about to start their 2022 exploration program at their Gold Point project in Nevada. Very interesting project, camp scale targets, 4 former producers on the land package, and last saw some production back in the 1960s when gold prices were rock bottom. So a lot of the mineralization that's exposed in the underground workings is likely economic at current prices, the unstoped areas that were left behind. So they've also been able to identify a lot of other targets on their property that were overlooked or too low grade for the previous operators to work on. So under current economics, it's a great project. Honey Badger, we've got about 20% of that company. They bought some of our silver projects from us last year, and they've begun exploration there. They're also active on another number of other fronts. So we're really expecting big things from them. Silver Range is a spin-out company from us. We dividended out shares to our shareholders. They act as a project generator as well, same model that we do as strategic, but they're working none of it Nevada and Northwest Territories. So we don't step on each other's toes by operating that way. Again, very successful group. Precipitate, we're working in the Dominican Republic. They've shifted their interests more toward Newfoundland now. And again, they're quite active in their exploration, and we have a 16% interest there. And finally, Broden Mining, along with Terra, they're two that could be very, very accretive to us. Both are still private companies. Broden is working in partnership with the Ross River Dene Council to acquire and potentially redevelop the Farrell mining district. The previous mines in that district were some of the largest lead zinc mines in Canada, but only about half of the ore was mined before the mine was shut down. So they're still sitting in resources on the property, about 5.3 billion pounds of zinc, 3.5 billion pounds of lead, 111 million ounces of silver, and 870,000 ounces of gold. When the mines were in production before, the precious metal prices were quite low, and so that represents tremendous blue sky for the operation going forward. The grades in these resources, you can see that gold, for example, is often between 70 and up to over an ounce, a gram per ton 70 to up over 100 ounces, 100 grams per ton silver, and very substantial gold. So we're, again, we really look forward to the progress there. We expect that they'll be IPOing later this summer, and at that time, there'll be a revised 43101 compliant resource estimation and a PEA for the project. So really looking at positive advances of road. And again, one of the important features there is the acquisition will be the area shown in red and purple and green. The area of the old mine site at Faro, the old mill site and the tailings dam will remain with the federal government. So we won't be taking on the liability for reclamation of those disturbed sites. It's comes to us quite clean. Just to recap then, what are some of the highlights going forward? Rockhaven Resources, we expect to see resource updates and a pre-feasibility from them. GGL, going to go into a major project looking at a former producing gold camp in Nevada. Broden, well, we've got to see how they make out, but they're on a fast track to opening what was once one of the most important mining camps, and well, certainly the most important mining camp in the history of Yukon. Terra CO2, potentially a major disruptor in a huge worldwide industry, and again, we're working on a lot of possible transactions, which we hope to announce in the next few months. So I'll stop talking for a while now and open it up to questions you might have.
Great. Thanks a lot, Doug, for the good presentation there. We do have a number of questions that have come in, so I'll get right to it. First one up, how would somebody best get updates on Terra CO2?
The best way to do it, unfortunately, we're really bound by a very tight confidentiality agreement with them. They obviously are very concerned about letting anything out about their technology, but they do have a website. Just Google Terra CO2 Technologies and it'll come up for you. They periodically update the progress toward development on it. But as I said, they're being very cozy and I think very intelligently trying to operate under the radar screen until they can get themselves really well established.
Great. Okay. Is there any updates on Mount Hinton?
On which one, sorry?
Mount Hinton.
Mount Hinton. Mount Hinton, we're very disappointed with the group that's taken that on. We can't collapse the option until the end of this year. The company still has the right to do work, but quite frankly, they fumbled the ball. It's a deal we probably wouldn't have done if COVID hadn't hit and we were able to sit face to face a little bit more with them and test their metal a little bit better. But it is a project that still very much is on our radar screen, and you can be sure that the moment it comes back in our hands, we'll be doing something with it.
Great. Okay. Next question here. How can Rockhaven be developed without massive dilution, such as potentially bringing a strong partner, etc.? Well, yeah, hopefully they will be able to. They're talking to some people now, and hopefully that will come to something. But so far, the dilution that they've been taking, they've been able to add ounces that, the dilution based on the share price to the number of ounces in the ground isn't particularly severe. The project is still expanding. They've made new discoveries. Their infill work this year was highly successful. They were able to go into areas that were within their the mine plan areas, but were shown as waste blocks because they hadn't been drilled yet. And in most instances, when they drilled there, they found that there was actually very good mineralization in areas that were shown as waste. The conversion of inferred to indicated has gone similarly very, very well. It's about they're finding that they're getting about a 10% increase in the number of ounces in the indicated when compared to the inferred, which is highly unusual. And as I said before, they've identified some areas
with this year's work, which I think are potential game changers for them, two that really come to mind. Work in the Rusk area has identified a fairly broad structure right at surface that I think potentially could be another open pit target for them, which could change mine sequencing somewhat. Also, they discovered a possible extension of the Western BRX. It's about an 800-meter step out from the known deposit. And as they explore back toward the known mineralization, there's a very good chance that they could encounter the same kind of bonanza grade material that was in that portion of the deposit.